Good afternoon, Excellencies. In fact, it's very much technical presentation, so I'm afraid jumping from the very high political strategic level to the nitty-gritty things, but somehow I will try to accommodate it. Ladies and gentlemen, building up defense capabilities is the politically and administratively quite, I would say, complex issue. Maybe not for everyone, but at least for me it is. Thank you for inviting me to, as a representative of SHAPE, to this panel, and obviously to the Sofia Security Forum. I think it is a perfect place to discuss very current issues linked with the security challenges. And just from my perspective, it is very much also linked to the World Summit Declaration. I will refer to this document several times as I see it from the SHAPE perspective as the main reference document, at least for me as a planner. At SHAPE, I'm the DCOS plans. It means Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategic Operation Planning, for Training and Exercise Planning, for Joint Capability Planning, and for Force Generation, getting forces to the board. I will refer to the World Summit Declaration. First of all, three core tasks. The second one, Readiness Action Plan in response to the challenges posed by Russia and addressing risks and threats from our southern neighborhood, namely Middle East and Northern Africa. It's very, very specifically stated over there. So the third point about adaptation measures, mainly about responsiveness, readiness and responsiveness of NATO action force, including the very high readiness joint task force, as the element being of very high readiness to be ready to go anywhere. Para 18 specifically picks up on stability in the Black Sea region. Other paragraphs are talking on Ukraine, Balkans, Middle East, Africa, Afghanistan, Jordan, Georgia, Moldova. So I would recommend, if for any reason you haven't got this document, just take it. Very interesting one. Coming back to capabilities, just quote, it is para 48. I will not quote any other parts. NATO will maintain the full range of capabilities necessary to deter and defend against any threat to the safety and security of our populations, wherever it should arise, unquote. So, how to build up the capabilities, the defense capabilities? The NATO defense planning process, so-called NDPP, is one of the tools facilitating the timely identification, development, and delivery of the necessary range of forces, as well as associated military and non-military capabilities to undertake the alliance's full spectrum of missions. The previous one. Just please keep this one. Obviously, this agenda, very, I would say, very long one, but I will skip some slides because of the time constraints. Keep please this one. The NDPP model comprises 5 steps. shown on the slide, starting with the political guidance. And I would like to underline, any our activities at SHAPE starts with the political guidance given by the NATO HQ. So IS, internal staff, together with IMS, international military staff, together with strategic commanders, both strategic commanders, they prepare NDPPC, Defense Planning and Policy Committee, which are nations are involved very much. They constitute, in fact, the PCC. They establish the political guidance. And it is, for my personnel, it is the Bible. We have to jump on this. And we cannot miss even a single dot, a single, I would say, comma. As is already mentioned here, 4-year cycle. Next slide, please. So far, so good, but next slide, please. So it is the process, and those are the different levels of management and organizations NATO-wide involved in the process of NDDP. So NDDP, to some extent, it is a complex process. It is a complex process. Again, everything starts with the political guidance. Yes, okay. Could you come with the next one? Come back. Thank you. Okay, mention. But it's not only level of ambition, because in political guidance, we have the usability targets, can be core tasks, obviously. It may focus on certain capabilities like the usability targets in percentage. The political guidance refers to specific capabilities NATO should have on the hand in certain time. The document provides also a resource guidance addressing defense expenditure, proportion of GDP devoted to defense and equipment expenditure as indicators of the burden. And the political guidance serves as a single, unified document to guide the alliance defense planning activities to inform those of nations individually. So again, what we are doing is not the planning process for NATO HQ on its own. It's a process of nations, because each nation is represented in those organizations at different levels. Next slide, please. Thank you. I would like to mention here only this one, that we are going to achieve through those processes, just mentioned here, so-called minimum capability requirements. It means we have certain scenarios, we have certain operation plans. We refer to those operation plans, and having the overarching view, what do we need, we establish so-called minimum capability requirement to respond to those precise requirements set up or dictated by the operations. All the mastery is not to have not to create overlaps, but also to have no gaps in the capabilities. Next slide, please. So we're going, if you have those already, MCRs, military capability requirements, we are going to apportionment of requirements to NATO, because NATO has its own capabilities. I'm talking about the NATO as organization, predominantly devoted for C2 structure, command and control structure, but also for some transportation and so on, and for the nations. Next slide, please. This step, we call it out-of-cycle step. Why? Because normally we've seen this just a few slides ago, that there's a 4-year cycle. But at a certain moment of time, when we create the military capability requirement, and they go for capability packages, sometimes those capability packages are longer than just the 4-year cycle. To build, for instance, the joint ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance system, we cannot build it. We cannot build it up NATO-wide during the 4 years period. It's just impossible to do it. So we go for out-of-cycle time frame. What I would like to underline, just could you please, okay? Those mentioned beyond those NATO initiatives, smart defense, framework nation concept, connected forces initiative, multinational initiatives, those are those projects or initiatives formulated in certain documents, framing certain, I would say, activities aimed at certain capabilities. NATO capability review is conducted biennially. It means every second year. And as a result of this, it's a kind of, I would say, review process when we have the so-called suitability and risk assessment at the end, and this ACO, Allied Command Operation, is my command. She is in lead, and we provide the nations, we provide with our estimation, okay, we have those gaps, we have those overlaps, and we have reconfigure the process in this direction, just to meet the level of ambition. Next slide, please. It was the first cycle of such a model. Therefore, after those 4 first years, we have some lessons learned, and apparently it was not the perfect process. We found out that there are some weak points. For instance, not sufficient harmonization of national efforts. For instance, lack of agility necessary to respond to certain initiatives. For instance, maybe another example, quite complex process, being a little bit, I would say, incomprehensible for those who are not involved from the scratch. So we have been tasked by the international staff, in fact by the Ministers of Defense, they tasked us last year to make the process much better with the analytical rigor, just adapt, as it's already stated, much better adaptable to the changing situation. The process should be transparent for everyone, understandable for everyone, quick and effective. So we're just doing this one. Next slide, please. And is the almost one, last one. And step 2, it is what we are as the military strategic commands, ACT, Allied Command Transformation, and the ACO, Allied Command Operations, are working on the NDPP, on enhancement of the NDPP. So the most important is to link up operation planning process with the NDPP process. Why I'm underlining this one? Because in the past, we have used the generic scenarios. Now we are going to the concrete operations. Obviously, the short and medium term is very much addressed in detail, with the assumption there will be no, I would say, gaps between those. Previously, there were gaps. And the most important is to have the long-term vision, because very often those capabilities, very costly ones, need to be addressed on short, medium, and long term. And the last point, it will be the process will be more, I would say, threat-focused versus the capability focus. Previous cycle was more about the capabilities for the generic scenarios. Now the threat and kind of combination, in some cases, threat plus capability necessary for the generic scenarios. Thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss. 15 minutes?
You are perfect.
Yeah, so thank you very much.